Welcome to the Inkwell Awards 10th live awards ceremony. Thank you for being here. To all of the new attendees, a sincere thanks for choosing to be here in support when there are so many other options right now. To returning attendees and members, much gratitude for your ongoing solidarity. For those unfamiliar with our organization, it's an official 501c3 nonprofit advocacy group with almost 100% of funds raised going towards our programs and operations. Neither I nor anyone on our committee receives a salary or monetary compensation for our time. All right, enough of that. Oop, well, unique mission, the only one like it in the multiverse, with the mission to promote the often misunderstood art form of comic book inking, educate the public, and show appreciation for the best ink artists by holding this, our annual live ceremony at HeroesCon. Without Heroes promoter Shelton Drum, we probably wouldn't have a live ceremony, as was the case for our first 3 years. He and his staff opened their arms to us after the debacle that was the Wizard World in 2010 and made this our host show and home, and we've never taken that for granted. So thank you, Andrew Mansell, Rico Renzi, Trey Alexander, Carla Marsh, and the entire HeroesCon crew. Unlike some, Shelton and company are not dismissive of ink artists. They are true supporters, friends, fans of inkers, and it's thanks to them that we get to our own day to be heard and recognized. Last year at this time, I mentioned that in 2015, we had welcomed our 19th ambassador aboard the team with Bronze Age veteran Rich Buckler. Unfortunately, he was the first of 2 member losses this season. As you probably have heard, Rich passed away last month. His longtime friend, Inkwell Awards member and supporter Joe Goulart wanted to offer a few brief words of tribute. Regrettably, 4 days ago, Joe informed me that he had to cancel this trip due to unexpected knee surgery. So I will proceed to read his statement in his absence. As most of you know, the creator community recently lost a member. Rich Buckler was one of those creators that impacted the comic art world and left an indelible impression in our hearts, minds, and souls. We lost Rich on May 19th. He left behind an amazing wife in Mila and a legacy that will carry on in the hands of comic buyers and collectors for years to come. Rich penciled so many characters for both Archie, DC, Marvel, and independent companies, from his first published art in King Features, Flash Gordon #10 in 1967, to his last piece, the cover of Black Panther and the Crew variant cover just a few months ago. To briefly touch on Rich's history and creative talent, we remember his long run on Fantastic Four with Inkwell's special ambassador, Joe Sinnott. His run on Black Panther and Jungle Action with author Don McGregor. Rich had an amazing newspaper run drawing the Incredible Hulk strip. And then there was All-Star Squadron and most significantly, his creation of Deathlock the Demolisher for Marvel. These many accomplishments and so many more will be enjoyed, will entertain, and bring inspiration to generations for years to come. Rich has worked side by side with some of the greats in the industry: George Perez, Roy Thomas, Neil Adams, Jerry Conway, just to name a few. I once asked Rich to name a character he has not drawn yet. His reply was, "I believe I've drawn every character at least once." Rich's legacy is ubiquitous. If you were ever to walk into a comic store tomorrow, next week, next year, and so on, I can guarantee you will find a comic on the wall that will have a Rich Buckler cover. Rich was not only an ambassador for the Inkwell Awards, he was a friend to every fan that came up to his table at a con and asked for his signature on a comic. Rich was my friend. I was privileged to be welcomed into his studio, his family, his life, and to be greeted with open arms. I will always hold a place in my heart for Rich, the man, the artist, and the creator of dreams. Rest in peace, my friend, the Inkwell Awards, and I will truly miss you, Joe Goulart. By the way, another quick note, it's tradition at our ceremony for our hostess, Ms. Inkwell, to escort all speakers to the podium, so please wait for her, Haley, right there, to escort you. And before I get on to the season highlights, I'd like to introduce you to our guest of honor this year, Joe GIELLA. Joe was present just after the dawn of American comic books, starting in the mid-1940s, starting for Hillman Periodicals and Fawcett Comics, before being hired on staff by Stan Lee at Timely Comics, the precursor to Marvel. There he did touch-up and inking jobs, assisting with other artists on Captain America, Human Torch, Submariner, and various humor stories. After that, his pal and one of last year's Hall of Fame winners, Frank Giacoia, convinced him to work for the better-paying National Comics, otherwise known as DC Comics. For 20 years, from 1948 through the Silver Age, Joe made a name for himself as one of DC's all-star inkers, inking many iconic characters, including the first Silver Age Green Lantern from Green Lantern, period, from the Bronze Age to the recent present. He applied his talent and skill to various noteworthy strips like Flash Gordon, The Phantom, and Mary Worth, as well as commercial art and painting. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our honor to present to you the legendary Joe GIELLA. Haley? She can escort you up, sir. Thank you. Do you want to sit down?
Hi. I'd rather run through fire than do this. Well, where do I start? Let's see.
No beginning, Joe.
I was 13 years old, and my teacher was always chastising me because I was drawing Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck all over the arithmetic books, English books. And they called my parents to school, and my father, he couldn't believe it. He says, "Oh, all these books are covered with cartoons, you know." And I tell you, I didn't want to go home that night. 13 years old. But my English teacher came to my defense, and he spoke to my dad. He says, "You better send this kid to art school." And that was the beginning of it. And that's where I met my friend Cy Barry, who did the Phantom strip, and a few other cartoonists at the time. And after that, when I graduated, I went to my first job was with Hillman Periodicals, and the editor was Ed Cronin. And the first job that I did, I still have the original comic book home. If you open it up, it'll just fall apart, you know. So, and it was called Captain Codfish. And now, let me tell you, times were rough then, but I needed a staff job, not a freelance job, because I needed a check every week. So Stan Lee gave me a break, and the very first job he gave me, every time they interview me, they never let me forget it. He says, "I lost it on the IRT train, the first assignment." So I figured nobody slept in the GIELLA household that night. So the next day I went to see Stan Lee, and I told him I lost the job. And I thought that was the end of it. But he gave me another chance, and they hired me, and then they put me in this a place called the Bullpen, which is a very good training for a young artist. That's where I met Al Bellman. See, and he calls me up. He says, "Joe, this is Al Bellman." I said, "Al, the last time I spoke to you, I was 17 years old, you know." So, but anyway, I worked with Timely Comics for 3.5 years, and then with my friend's persistence, Frank Giacoia talked me into going to DC Comics. That's where I worked with my editor, Julie Schwartz, for 45 years. And I think I ran the gamut up there with all the characters, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, you name it, you know. And I also did a lot of licensing work there. See, with DC, I did mostly inking. For monetary reasons, you know, I figured I could make a living inking, but with penciling, because none of us started out as inkers. With penciling, I could probably turn out a page a day. Not enough to support my family, you know. And so I went to inking, like a lot of the other fellows did at the time. But I also did penciling and inking for DC in the licensing field. I was the artist for the National Biscuit Company. And my editor was Joe Orlando, I remember, and let's see, oh yes, and a few other projects we worked on, Just Say No to Drugs, and they were very successful. And the editor became vice president. She was Terry Cunningham. And because of the success of these projects, right away they promoted her, see. And let's see now, what else did I do? Oh yeah, then they offered me the Batman comic strip, syndicated strip. Did that for 3 years. Then I left DC, and I worked with my friend Cy Barry on the Phantom for 17 years. And let's see, what did I do after that? Don't mind me, I didn't sleep much last night. Really, at 2 o'clock in the morning, I fell asleep. I was telling my wife, she says, how are you going to do it today? I said, well, we'll do it, you know. But let's see, oh gosh, what did I do after that? Yeah. Well, then they offered me the Mary Ward strip. Oh, no, wait, prior to that, Bob Kane, when I was with DC, he approached me and he says, Joe, I'd like you to do some work for me. And he had a TV show every Saturday or Sunday morning, I forget which one. And he would get up on a stage with an easel, and he would draw all these villains and characters, but they were my drawings done in a very light blue pencil. You know? And my kids would say, but Dad, that's not fair, you know. That's his strip, it's not mine, you know. But he was okay with me. You know, a lot of the artists, they kind of badmouth him, but Bob was fine with me. And then, let's see, yeah, I'd walk to his apartment every week, and he'd ask me to do maybe the Joker or the Penguin, whatever villain he wanted that week, and he got. But let's see, then they offered me the Mary Ward strip, and I couldn't sign my name on it when I did the syndicate, the Bob Kane strip, because he was still in the contract. I had to, 3 years, I had to allocate an area on the strip to put his name, and then I had to sign his name. What are you going to do? Once again, you know. But when they offered me the Mary Ward strip, I says, can I sign it? He says, oh, you have to sign it. I said, I'll take it, okay. So 25 years, Mary Ward. And I retired, I don't know, about 7, 8 months ago. And, but I figured everybody says, are you enjoying your retirement? I think I'm working harder now, running around, you know. So, but it's been good. I really have no complaints. The pinnacle, I feel, was when they put my work on postage stamps, and I had to say a few words. In San Diego, I met the mayor. Never made a dime on those stamps. None of the artists did. See, not one penny. See, But I always tell them, but at least I met the mayor. So, but as I was walking off the stage, this attractive woman was walking towards me, and she shakes my hand. She says, "I'm Bob Kane's wife." I said, "Wow, yeah, he passed away, you know." So, and I says, and she says, "Bob spoke well of you," and you know, I forget what else she said, but it was nice meeting her. And let's see, after that, 25 years of married. I guess that's it. I have 10 grandkids. I'm going to be a great grandfather, and I don't know what else to tell you. So, thank you. I feel better. Take it off now. Oh, okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Did you want to leave now? You can go back to table, or did you?
Yeah, I really have to get back.
Yeah. Do you have, is your escort here right now?
No, I know where to go.
Okay, you're welcome to leave. I don't want you to miss out on your table time.
Okay.
Okay. Round of applause for Mr. GIELLA.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
I really have to get
He has to get back to his table. I think we understand that. I think we're very fortunate and privileged just to have a few moments with him. Okay. My God, this is falling apart.
Get out of here, Rocky Kid. Sure you are. I'm older than you.
That bully is a good friend of Joe's. That's Alan, in just in case you don't know. All right. Okay, moving along. A few highlights and accomplishments from our organization's past season. We sponsored our 7th Dave Simons Inkwell Memorial Scholarship Fund for $1,000 to the Kubert School in honor of the notable ink artist, Inkwell friend, and former committee member Dave Simons, who passed away in 2009. This year's student recipient was Brian Benjamin. Dave's sister Betty gave the following statement. Congratulations to the 2000 recipient of the Dave Simons Inkwell Memorial Scholarship, Brian Benjamin. It is with great pride that I am asked every year to contribute some thoughts to the scholarship ceremony for Dave. I have fond memories of Dave when he was in high school and the frustration that our father felt when Dave was spending hours upon hours at the drawing board. Dad would tell Dave, go outside for a while. Dave had no interest in going outside when he was drawing. I remember the Night Rider board he was working on at the time, and he was so content. He even had hair. I am grateful to all the members of Inkwell for their dedicated and selfless efforts put forth to continue Dave's legacy and memory. Not a day goes by that he is not on my mind, and it is hard to believe that it's been 8 years since he passed. I know that Dave would have loved to mentor anyone in their journey to be more creative and a talented artist. In a sense, that's what is happening every year with this scholarship presentation. Best of luck and happy trails, Betty Simons Rock. This year, we held our 7th Joe Sinnott Inking Challenge, our key educational program showing what inkers actually do. We had the legendary inker among inkers, Joe Sinnott, pencil 2 loose sketches of a different character with few, if any, details this year because of his busier than usual workload, instead of the usual 1 loose image and 1 tightly drawn one. The work was reproduced in blue line on Bristol board, and inkers went to town, embellishing his loose drawings, some redrawing in ink. These pages, with both artist signatures, were donated for fundraising and auctioned off in our eBay store. We also continued our first challenge spin-off program, the Sinnott Inking Challenge Spotlight, this time featuring pencil art by Neil Adams and inks by a limited number of established professionals, amateur inkers, and Kubert students and instructors. Much thanks for the initial effort in launching the program goes to former committee member Joe Goulart. From both programs, we raised under $3,000. Just under. We were going to publish the art in our 6th annual Joe Sinnott Inking Challenge book, a printed primer for what inkers do. But this year we're taking a break due to our limited manpower. We plan to release it next year in celebration for our 10-year anniversary. After 5 years in the making, we finally completed our Ms. Inkwell Gallery book, of which I'm truly proud. Please check it out at our Artist Alley table this weekend. We added 3 new venues to our annual convention tour list, thanks to Spencer Beck, who brokered the arrangements, covering both Haley and my travel lodging expenses, a significant first. Much thanks to Indiana Comic-Con and Tampa Bay Comic-Con, which is next month, both owned by the company Imaginarium, and to the Garden State Comic Fest, all for their added exposure in the South, Midwest, and East Coast, helping us to keep costs down and more within our budget. For 2018, Jim Turnus and Joe Googler have talked to Mark Carbonaro, promoter of the Big Apple Con, and arranged for us to have support at that venue for the first time. Regarding membership, senior contributor, book editor, and the lady that operated Ray Burke's ceremony slideshow presentation here the last 2 years, Enrica Jang regrettably had to step down. We've added Ian Chase Nichols as new book editor contributor, and Rusty Gilligan came aboard as an occasional auctioneer contributor. C. Edward Sellner had a short stint on the core committee team, and Eric Corpy returned to core committee status. First member to ever do so. He'll be assisting us for the auction fundraising duties and developing our advertising program and tonight's door prizes. On another but familiar note, since 2011, I have publicly stated that we do not agree with the Eisner Awards decision in the 1990s to remove their category for Best Inker. Their reason, it was too difficult to decipher where the penciling ended and the inking began. Since then, we've combined the category, they've combined the category into the Best Artist, Best Penciler Inker, Best Penciler Inker Team. This disrespectful and insulting to both ink artists and readers. To the former, it says we're not worthy to our own category, as it undermines the art form. To the latter, it says you've suddenly grown too confused to know the difference between pencils and inks and are incapable of learning it. I again make this offer to their powers that be. The Inkwell Awards would be more than happy to proactively discuss the issue and assist them in reinstating the solo inking category. We now have a credits council, which makes us even more able to help. Last year, I was double dutying it as presenter, which meant you had the pleasure of double droning from me. This year, you get a bit of a break because my assistant director, Mike Pascale, will announce the first 5 main categories. This is his first time here in Charlotte, as he lives in California, so it's a big deal for us since we haven't met him since he joined the team back in 2012. He's handled much of our proofreading, editing, various graphic needs and design since then. He's the guy that always wants to interject some funny bits of humor into my dialogue, which I do my best to deliver poorly. But now he gets to die up here. Please welcome the creator of Brewhead, cartoonist, storyboardist, children's book illustrator, columnist, film reviewer, and my right hand, Mike Pascale.
Thank you, everyone. I'll try not to suck. For years, Bob has wanted to fly me out here for this, but he never had the arm strength or the budget. So this year, I decided to forego the usual craziness at Comic-Con San Diego and use that dough to attend the hijinks here at Heroes. I am honestly honored to be among some of my favorite artists who inspired me both as a kid and a pro. First, thanks to Bob Allman for his tireless and tiring efforts on behalf of ink artists. Few folks truly realize how much time, effort, energy, and brain cells get vacuumed up by what he does and the toll it takes. He used to be a beautiful young woman when he started the Inkwells. Now look at him. But seriously, he deserves his own award for starting this wonderful and sorely needed organization in the first place and keeping it going for a decade. Let's hear some loud love for our Mr. A. All right, now, quick show of hands. How many people here are familiar with Charlton Comics? All right. Now, how many actually subscribe to one? I think you and I were it.
Midnight Tale.
Yeah. Many ghosts of Dr. Graves. Yeah, all right, good one. Well, when I did ages ago, I received as a bonus this handy booklet, the comic book guide for the artist. You still got yours too? The artist, editor, and artist, writer, and letterer, covered by Tom Sutton. This was my introduction to the art form of inking. It's where I discovered things like brushes and pens, craft tin, wash, and India ink, which took me years to figure out wasn't actually made in India. But for a 12 or 13-year-old kid, it opened my peepers to the process. I've been regularly reading comics for a few years, and I'd always seen the credits for inker, but I never really grasped what they did. Finally, this booklet helped demystify things and explain why a Joe Sinnott comic looks so different than an Al Williamson comic. I began studying inkers' names and style so I could eventually tell the embellishers apart. I would rejoice when I see names of my favorites, like Joe and Al, along with Murphy Anderson, Dick Giordano, Joe Giella, John Romita, Tom Palmer, Mike Royer, and more. There were even some guys like Wally Wood and Rudy Nebrez, whose comics I would buy just for their inks, no matter what it was. There was a bit of magic in every line. Then I bought the Captain America's Bicentennial Battles Treasure Edition, which featured Jack Kirby inked by Herb Trimpe, Barry Windsor Smith, Alfredo Alcala, and other big names. It really further opened my eyes to how much an inker could add or detract from a penciler's work. But I didn't truly understand what inkers did until my Methods and Materials class at the Joe Kubert School, taught by Ben Ruiz. Having to sling ink with a brush and pen was way different than using markers and ballpoint pens that I used as a kid. Inking my own comics professionally a decade later helped cement my admiration. All the practice never made me perfect, but it sure made me appreciative. I also appreciated how some artists were as amazingly adept with ink as they were with pencil. The all-in-ones like Frazetta, Kubert, Eisner, Wood, Jack Davis, Neil Adams, and Bernie Wrightson. When I first saw Bernie's work on Swamp Thing, it was a revelation. When I saw his Frankenstein book, it was like standing under a black and white Sistine Chapel ceiling. Getting to finally meet him a few times, obtaining his autograph, and eventually buying some art from him was a blessing. I was thrilled when he became one of our first recipients of our Special Recognition Award a couple years ago. I'm just sad that he left us way, way too soon. I'd like to dedicate everything I've done for the Inkwells up till now to Bernie, one of the best there ever was. That's Bernie. Lastly, I want to thank all of the inkers in this room, whether I'm familiar with your work or not, for doing what you do, making good art into great art, making the art indelible while leaving equally indelible impressions on every child, adult, fan, and pro who sees your wonderful work. It's a tough skill to master and an even tougher profession to maintain. I salute you all. Now, let's get on to the awards. To our distinguished recipients, we ask that you keep your acceptance speeches brief so we can get through everything. Although we couldn't afford a full orchestra, I do have a kazoo, and I'm not afraid to use it. So, here are the first 5 categories and nominees from the 2017 Inkwell Awards ballot. All are for 2016 cover-dated American comic book material. And remember, winners, please let Ms. Inkwell assist you and watch your step and watch your hands. After receiving your award, please take a seat for the Q&A later. And the nominees, to whom I apologize for any name butchering, the first category is Favorite Inker, awarded for Favorite Ink Artist over the pencil work of another artist. To save time, I won't read all their impressive credits, but they will be listed on the slides, as well as on our wondrous website, theinkwellawards.com. So the first nominees are Sandra Hope Archer, Matt Banning, Eber Ferreira, Scott Hanna, Stefano Guadiano, Jonathan Glapion, Mick Gray, Danny Mickey, and Tim Townsend. And the winner, with 21% of the votes, is Scott Hanna. Scott previously won this same category in 2011. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you. I lost my prepared speech, so I'm just going to wing it. It's always a privilege to be just nominated in this for any of the Inkwell Awards. You just saw a list of some of the best inkers in the business right now. So to be considered, to be voted in as the favorite is even more of a privilege and an honor. It's very special. I've always been a fan of line in drawing. My biggest influences were the Golden Age illustrators, like Joseph Clement Cole, Franklin Booth, who inspired Bernie Wrightson, Heinrich Clay. I just saw some of his artwork. And the fact that the Inkwell Awards honors the people who still specialize in ink line is something very, very special, and it's wonderful to be a part of it. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Scott. Next is our Most Adaptable Inker Award for exceptional ink style versatility over other pencil artists. And The nominees are Sandra Hope Archer, Wayne Fauscher, Jonathan Glapion, Scott Hanna, Jay Leiston, Danny Mickey, Mark Morales, Victor Olazaba, Norm Ratmund, Dexter Vines, and Walden Wong. And a winner with 19.97% of the votes, and his 4th consecutive win in the category is Walden Wong. Walden couldn't make it here this year, so he forwarded the following statement. Thank you so much. I'm extremely humbled to receive this award, as all of the other nominees in the same category are great artists I've admired. To win is beyond belief. I've been working in comics for a good amount of time, and to this day I still study the line work of many artists, how each line is tapered, crosshatched, textured, rendered, or spotted. Learning how each inking tool can be used more effectively to excel the pencils further, adapting to what makes the pencil work shine. Every project I work on, I'm always researching artists' works, other artists' styles, different ways of inking to fit specific pencils, different textures to achieve an effect, then pulling all that research together to work on a project. Always continuously wanting to learn more with each project I take on. To get this award while I'm still learning the craft is, again, beyond belief. For me, there's always room to learn, to grow, to excel, and to adapt. Thank you all for this award and for allowing me to be even better at what I do for years to come. Thank you. All right. The 3rd category is the Props Award for the ink artist deserving of more attention for their work over other pencilers. The nominees are Jonathan Glapion, Scott Hanna, Andrew Hennessy, Klaus Jansen, Tony Cordos, Jason Paz, and Dexter Vines. This year's winner with 24.34% of the votes is again the twin talented Scott Hanna. Congratulations, man.
I get nominated too many times, I don't know. Actually, this time I just want to thank, one of the things we can't do without as inkers in this business is the partnerships with all the pencilers we get to work with. And I've had the privilege over many years to work with almost all of the top talent in the business. Last year, I was able to work with Lee Weeks again, John Romita again, Mark Bagley again, David Finch for the first time. So many spectacular, Ben Caldwell, who's here at the show. I can't even count all the people I worked with, because I do work with a lot of people. but every one of them, kind of like Walden was saying in his speech, is that each one of them pushes us to get better, learn new tricks, learn new methods to adjust to their style. My goal has always been to work with the artist, not over the artist. And our goal as artists in general is we're always trying to improve. We're trying to get better. I want to be that 90-year-old man still at my drawing table trying to figure out a new way to do something. Okay. I want to be you. Yes, see, I want to be you. And I'll get there. I'll get there. But also, and I look at our forebears, all the people who have done this and been doing this for so long, and you realize how much we still have to grow and to learn and to keep on improving. And it's just miraculous that I get to be a small part of this. So thank you very much.
Push it.
Meryl Streep called. She said she's jealous, Scott. Our 4th category is the Spammy Award, which stands for the favorite small press and mainstream independent work over another pencil artist, non-Marvel or DC work. The nominees are Stefano Guadiano, Jonathan Glapion, Cliff Rathburn, Brian Shearer, Carl Story, and Ryan Wynn. After 3 times as runner-up in the category, the winner with 23.45% of the votes is Jonathan Glapion.
It's okay.
He's so shy.
I'd rather walk through fire.
Here's your
Yeah, I'm
award.
not good at this part, so I'm going to save all the. talk for that part. But I do want to say thank you for, it almost feels like a defense of inkers in a way. It seems like we're always trying to be murdered. And now that we're in this amazing digital inking age, that's gonna die. I do want to say seriously thank you for doing this and keeping inking relevant, really. You know. Yeah, I'm just gonna say thank you, and then I'll do all that down there. He's good at this.
Thank you. All right, and our fifth category is the All-in-One Award. The nominees are Bong Dazo, Joel Jones, Erik Larsen, Jerome Opeña, Stan Sakai, Nicola Scott, Liam Sharp, and Walter Simonson. And the winner with 18.46% of the votes is Erik Larsen. Good job, man.
All right, man.
Congratulations.
I don't know how the hell this happened. That's all right. I think one of the things that changed my art more than anything else was actually inking, because when I was just doing the penciling part, there was an awful lot of things that I could do in pencil, and then when I went to do the inking part, I found that I could not do that when I was inking. And there was also an awful lot of stuff that I found that I could do in ink that was impossible to communicate in pencil form. So that really just changed everything, because suddenly I was getting toothbrushes out and X-Acto knives and cutting zipatone and doing all sorts of special crazy effects that it was just impossible to tell another inker, yeah, I want you to splatter the crap out of this with a toothbrush and then take some white out and do the same. You just couldn't communicate that sort of thing, and you certainly couldn't control what kind of effect you were going to get just by putting pencils down. And really, the whole thing of going from pencils to inks is, it can be this miraculous transformation of the work from being one thing to being something else entirely. One of the things I miss more than anything these days is that pencilers tend to be more overbearing, in that they want they're making their work more precise, and they're putting in line thicknesses and expecting inkers to go over what they do and strictly adhere to what they put down. And in the older days, what would happen is the pencilers would be doing far looser work, and it was a lot more fun for the inkers because there was just a lot more stuff to play with. And it was really much more of a creative team. I liken it to like two different groups of two people running a relay race. And with the first two, one guy runs half the race, hands the baton to the other guy, and then the other guy runs in for the rest of it. And now it seems like they're both running the same race together, just holding the baton, and you know, neither of them's getting a rest. And it's more work for the inker because he's got to be so precise and doesn't have any fun with it. And it's way more work for the penciler. And it just seems that there's this redundancy of workload that would really be better off if these people would just go, can we just be an actual team here and work on creating something together? So I do like that there's this special awards for inkers, because damn it, they deserve it. So thank you.
Thank you, Erik. And I'm back. This thing's gone.
This is a weapon.
Now our final two prestigious awards, the Joe Sinnott Hall of Fame and the Special Recognition Award. go to 4 recipients this year. They are chosen internally by members of the organization, past and present, and by past Sinnott Hall of Fame award winners. The first is the Special Recognition Award, added 2 years ago. This honor is for an inking career in American comic books of outstanding accomplishment, 25 years minimum. This differs from the Joe Sinnott Hall of Fame to follow by one or more discerning factors related to the artist and his or her career. A limited career output, inking themselves or a few others, but consisting of impressionable, influential work. Name recognition may not be as prevalent due to semi or full retirement or having passed away, not being necessarily known for innovations or awards, but considered a workhorse with variable output, and industry respect, and various hurdles may have limited popular exposure due to gender, ethnicity, or other challenges. This designation is for the underdog, or the elder, or the gone and or forgotten great. Nominees this year include Michael Allred, Violet Barclay, Cy Barry, John Byrne, Ernie Chan, Jack Davis, Tony DeZuniga, Will Elder, Mike Esposito, Frank Frazetta, Gerhard, Jeff Isherwood, George Klein, Frank McLaughlin, Mike Mignola, Alan Milgram, and Mike Royer. Our first winner, a nominee for the last 2 years, is a Golden Age pioneer and one of the few women inkers in comics who worked with Timely, Marvel, and others from the early 40s to the 50s. The winner is Violet Barclay, AKA Valerie Smith. Regrettably, Violet is no longer with us, as she passed away in 2010. But to speak on her behalf, please welcome another pioneer artist, fellow art school classmate, friend of Violet's, and Timely Comics, and 2007 Inkpot Award winner and convention nomadic nonagenarian, Mr. Allen Bellman. Would you rather speak here or sit down?
No, I could talk.
Okay, very good. Go ahead.
My name is Allen Bellman, and I'm an alcohol. Oh, wrong meeting. I would like to say something about Violet Barclay. She was as beautiful as a beautiful woman could be. I remember going to the High School of Industrial Art where she was a student. That's how far back. She would stand on a step waiting for the bell to ring. She was all alone. She was like a goddess, so beautiful. No one even dared to go near her. Then when I got a job with Timely Marvel Comics, she was working there. And she was working there with Mike Sikowski, and there was a twosome. Mike Sikowski had met her at she was a hostess at a restaurant or bar or something, and he got her a job. And then there was George Klein, a very debonair, nice-looking man who dressed with a Homburg like he stepped out of Gentleman's Quarterly. And there was a story going on. There was a sort of a romance between George Klein, Violet Barclay, and Mike Sikowski. Mike went into Stanley and said, "I want you to fire Violet Barclay or I quit." And Stanley said, "Goodbye." Mike Sikowski walked back to his drawing table. What I could say about Mike Sikowski was he was a genius of an artist, great talent, terrible attitude. I don't want to keep you too long, but I want to say thank you for the honor. Is this accepting an award for Violet Barclay? Or?
You are, yes.
A boat. I'm going to take a bath tonight, guys. Bring you over, we'll have a race. I don't know if Violet Barkley has any relatives behind. When she passed on, everything disappeared. But I will cherish this in her memory because she was a good person. I knew her not that well or anything, but I knew her. We've met on the streets and when I was looking for work, and we talked and spoke. But Violet, wherever you are, rest in peace. Thank you so much. That's all right, I can walk, all right. I think.
They were supposed to give me 6 chairs and mics, and they gave me...
One race your vote? Okay,
What you got on it?
not mine.
I really thought he was going to mention something that Alan said that was quoted on Wikipedia, just to show you how much of a badass Violet was as an inker. She apparently used to do her mascara with India ink and a brush. You said that, didn't you, Alan?
What? I'm sorry. Are you talking to me?
Yeah. Wikipedia says that in an interview you mentioned that Violet actually used India ink on a brush for her mascara.
Oh, she used India ink as a mascara. You can go blind.
But you only have to do it once.
I mean, India ink was meant for drawing, not for eye. But, you know, she was different. Every day she had another name.
Yeah.
Yeah, Violet wasn't really suitable for her, so give me another name with V. All right,
I
but
think she sounds unique in a good way. Okay, thank you, Alan. Our second SRA winner is a versatile writer, penciler, and editor, primarily for Marvel and DC from the 70s through the 90s, who is most prolific as a go-to inker. A nominee for this award the last 2 years and a runner-up last year. Our award recipient is Alan Milgram. Unfortunately, Al could not make it here today, so I'll read the statement he submitted and will accept his trophy on his behalf. I'm sorry I cannot be there to accept this award in person. Family matters dictate that I must be elsewhere. I am honored to be recognized for my body of work. While certainly not the best of inkers, I was pretty good with a deadline and feel that perhaps my greatest strength as an inker was in adapting to the style of the pencil I was working over. I once described myself as an inking chameleon because my work often looked so different depending on who I was inking. More than one pencilers or editors would tell me that they were taken aback by the way my inks looked on various sundry pencilers. Usually this was expressed as a mildly shocked and pleasantly surprised attitude. My first job was doing backgrounds for the great Murphy Anderson, a talented and patient teacher who gave me 2 nuggets of advice. 1, we're paid to ink, not think. And 2, when in doubt, black it out. In the years to follow, I added a 3rd rule. I can't ink them if I ain't got them. This is in response to an editor who asked where the hell the pages of a Punisher job were, only to find, after I denied ever have received them, that they were still in his file drawer in the office. He immediately decided to take the job for me and spread it around among a bunch of inkers until I convinced him to let me do it, assuring him that if the next batch of pages came in before I'd caught up, he could parcel out the job as he saw fit. To his credit, he agreed, and to my credit, I ended up doing the entire job myself, as I'd suspected I could. A truly wonderful thing about being an inker is getting to collaborate with other creative artists. Of course, this goes for pencilers in reverse, too. Imagine my delight when, having gotten established in the business, I got to ink many of my longtime favorite pencilers, such as Kirby, Ditko, Gil Kane, Infantino, Don Heck, John Romita, and dozens more, including my boyhood friend Jim Starlin, who is so much better penciling than I almost gave up drawing altogether. As well as many of the new guys, easy for me to say, my contemporaries who went to the field beginning around the same time. Simonson, Cockrum, Chaikin, Weiss, Friends, Lim, John Romita, Jr. this time, as well as dozens more who came along afterwards. Over the course of my career, I inked, and I measured this, a metric ton of different pencilers. And about 100 metric tons of pages, that's a lot. Being a dinosaur, I still prefer the old ways and the old look of comics, but you can't fight progress. And so inkers may be going the way of the dinosaur. That's right, we're becoming fossil fuels. But no, not really. I quote Dr. Seuss, who said, "Don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened," and I do. So thanks again for the recognition. I've got a blank space on my wall at home where this award should fit nicely. Before I present the Sinnott Hall of Famers, I want to take but a moment to mention a special, unique member of the Inkwell family that we lost only 3 weeks ago, Stacey Aragon. A member since 2009, she was our first female volunteer to advance to the core committee, and she left a wonderful, lasting impression on everyone she touched, in spite of discreetly suffering from cancer and being treated for a decade. Right up until 10 days before her passing, she was still on Facebook sharing one of our fundraising auction notices. Selfless, generous, kind, sweet and compassionate, yet strong and courageous. Those exceptional qualities of her seem so rare to find in a person today. The last 2 years, her website and brochure credits simply credited her as heart and soul. We were honored and privileged to have her as a prolific member and a loving friend. Her memory inspires us to pay it forward like she did in our own lives. To celebrate her life and gifts, with permission given from her husband, David Hansen, we dedicate this award ceremony to her. In addition, I am renaming the SRA Award the Stacey Aragon Special Recognition Award, starting next year, our 10th anniversary. We love you, Stacey. And now, we present the 2017 Joe Sinnott Hall of Fame Award for an inking career in American comic books of outstanding accomplishment. Lifetime achievement, 25 years minimum, with 2 winners chosen annually. The roster of former Hall of Fame award recipients include Joe Sinnott, of course, Terry Austin, Dick Giordano, Klaus Janson, Al Williamson, Wally Wood, Kevin Nolan, Mark McKenna, Scott Williams, Dick Ayers, Murphy Anderson, Joe Simon, Tom Palmer, Joe Kubert, Steve Ditko, Joseph Rubenstein, and Frank Giacoia. Artists nominated for this year's prestigious award were Mike DiCarlo, Mark Farmer, Bob Layton, Pablo Marcus, Bob McLeod, Rudy Nebres, Jerry Ordway, and Mike Royer. After tallying the votes, the runner-up was Bob Layton, and the first of our 2 winners is the runner-up from last year. Penciler, inker, painter for many companies from 1980 through today, most famous for DC Comics work on Superman and Power of Shazam. A round of applause for the Ordster himself, Jerry Ordway. This thing's busted. It's been cracked.
Yeah.
Bob, here's my prize. No, just kidding.
Yeah, you're gonna have to hold this. That holder's broken.
I guess I'd reiterate what many of the people said. It's great to have an award that kind of values inking, because inking has been kind of on a downward slide for many years. I think it's also nice to be recipient of the Joe Sinnott Award. Can I give you a hand? You got it? Here.
I'll give you a hand.
Anyways, Joe Sinnott was always my hero. I'm being upstaged. Joe Sinnott was one of the first guys that I noticed who really had a distinct style, and his books looked different from, because Jack Kirby drew so many books. It was always nice to see how one person kind of make an impact. And I, of course, loved Wally Wood. I appreciate people who are really heavy-handed, but also people who have a light touch. And I think when I started, I was more of a trying to prove myself, and probably was a little more heavy-handed. It took me a couple of years to realize that I needed to step back and just approach each project as it, for what it needed. But again, it's it's a nice honor, and it's especially nice, like I said, to get the Joe Sinnott name connected with it, because Joe is one of my, I think he was really an inspiration to me, but he was also one of the first guys when I was a fan to spend an extra couple of minutes helping me out, doing a critique on a piece of work that I did. And I've always tried to do that for people because I think that's important. It's a way of paying it forward to a degree and not expecting anything in return, but just honoring the people who helped, you know, like Erik LARSEN.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Oh, wait, do I get an award? Wait, hey, what a jip, I didn't even get an award.
No, you can take the just take it.
I need a T-shirt. I need that T-shirt that says I didn't get an award.
Our second recipient is a penciler and inker who began in the Philippines, crossed over to American comics in the early 1970s, and was known for his distinctive ink work from DC, Marvel, and Warren. Please welcome to the stage, Mr. Rudy Nebres.
There we go. There we go. That's the guy.
This is yours. You're going to have to hold this because the speaker's holder's broken.
It's got it.
Do you want to put this down? If you want to display it.
Okay, that amazing award, I'm honored to get one, to receive one. So I have a short things to say here. And on behalf of my contemporaries, admirers, fans, and those associated with the Inkwell Awards, Bob, I say thanks and hope to further live up to this honor by receiving winners. Thank you again. And to Joe, thanks to all the admiration and inspiration, and guidance. And thank you again.
Joe Sinnott, the world's namesake and first winner, made the following statement about this year's inductees. It is with great pride that I received the news of two outstanding individuals, Rudy Nebres and Jerry Ordway, being elected into this year's Inkwell Awards Hall of Fame. I have always been in awe of the fabulous art that Rudy Nebres does. Such detailed and beautiful ink lines are displayed on every page. I really enjoyed the outstanding work that Rudy did on Savage Sword of Conan. It is, in my opinion, some of the best illustration that I've ever seen. It is always a pleasure when we get together at shows. We always have such a good time, I only wish we could do it more often. Jerry Ordway, much like Rudy, is such a great artist on his own. I greatly enjoyed his work on Superman. It is some of the finest I've ever seen. I did have the pleasure of inking one of Jerry's Fantastic Four issues, number 296. He was one of the many artists that I was able to ink on the FF through the years, and certainly one of the best. I only wish that we could have done more than just that one lone issue together. I'm so proud that these two fine gentlemen can now join our elite group. Welcome to the Joe Sinnott Hall of Fame class of 2017, Rudy and Jerry. You are both well-deserving, and it is great to have you on board as members. Also, once again, a huge thank you to the Inkwell Awards for doing such an outstanding job in promoting and educating about the art of comic book inking, and to the Inkwells Committee for electing Rudy and Jerry. And to all the comic book fans, a big thank you for your continued support of the Inkwell Awards. And lastly, to Bob Allman, without you, none of this would be possible. Until next time, Jolton Joe Sinnott, June 2017. And can we have another round of applause for all of our winners? Thanks again to all of our guest speakers. We will now have a quick Q&A with our winners and any interested speakers, which would be like Alan. Following that, we'll call ticket numbers for our door prizes. Thanks immensely for your support for another outstanding ceremony. We look forward to seeing you all at next year's 10th anniversary celebration. Okay, who would like to start off with a question? Yes, sir.
I've always been intrigued by great pencilers who double as inkers. I thought Don Heck was one of the best inkers over Jack Kirby, for instance, and George Tuska filled in and inked over Kirby a few times. And just a few comments, like, do you guys have any particular favorites of great pencilers who could just, it seemed, when in a pinch, turn around and become great inkers?
Jerry Ordway.
I would say Al Williamson was
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
late career inking other people was really fantastic.
I always liked it when Joe Kubert would ink other people.
Yeah.
Because he would just,
Can I say something about that?
no.
Could we stop with that?
No. You brought up a very interesting thing. I wanted to pencil and ink my own, and I did a lot of inking when Stan said, hand me and Saul Brodsky, if you remember him, good friend of mine, to ink Human Torch, about 18 pages, so we both had to get it. But I found out in later life that I should have stood just by penciling. I don't ink anymore. My penciling, I use a very dark pencil. I ink, my penciling looks like ink when it's reproduced. And at one time, Stan Lee wanted to try and just pencil and see how it reproduced. But I think today, it's a whole new system today. It's computer, but, of course, somebody has to draw. So I would say to you, sir, there were great pencilers and great inkers, and what can I say? I mean, I tip my hat to those who are great. But to ink, by the time you start to ink your own pencil, you're damn tired. And you're tired of doing the story. So anybody here who give you advice, stick to one or stick to the other. And my penciling has gotten improved, and I draw with ease, and I know I don't have to ink it. So anyway.
Actually, another one of my favorites was Murphy Anderson, who's,
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people don't even know his pencil work, but it was I loved his Hawkman, for instance. A couple of years ago, I got to work with Simonson, and he's mostly known for penciling and inking his own work, but occasionally he works with inks other people, and it's usually outstanding. There are a lot of artists like that when they take that inking, aspect, they really shine. Because literally every top inker I've ever met can pencil very well. So it kind of goes hand in hand.
Okay. Yes, Mike.
Eric made a great point about the styles changing with pencilers getting super tight, and like you said, adding even line weights and stuff like that. Who's basically to blame? Is that an editorial thing out of ignorance, or do they think it makes it faster? Or?
No, nobody thinks it makes anybody faster, that's for sure. No, it's just ego on the part of pencilers wanting to control the project. I think a lot of it is, especially if you don't know who stuff is being handed to, there's a certain amount of, I need to make this inker proof. And so it's like, if this is as tight as it can possibly be, then you don't have to worry if it's handed to somebody unless, they're going to erase it, which happens too.
I think that's why pencil is like having an inking partner. They know what's in each other's head,
Yeah.
and the guy can just, or the girl can just pencil loosely,
I mean,
knowing.
many people will go hand in hand. They'll just go, and this is a guy I like to have ink all my stuff. And it's like, all right.
I would also, I have to say that I'm one of those guys who has certainly gone in that direction of penciling really tightly. But, and it's exactly what Eric said, there's a point where you feel like you want to make it inker, idiot-proof, whatever, no, you know what I'm saying? And there are people who pencil like that, and when you see it, you can tell what they're going for, because you also don't always, in all the years I've been in comics, I've very rarely had a choice of who is going to ink me. The editor will ask you an opinion, who do you think, and you give them your perfect choices, and they wind up with somebody that may have been in the office that day or whatever. And that's
Why did they ask?
you know, so there's a reason for it, even though it does, I wouldn't want to ink pencils as tight as my own, although when I do my own work, I draw very loosely. I've hated when I've inked on people who are super tight. It just, there's no fun.
No. It's like,
more fun if
why am
there's
I
something
here?
for you
Why am
to
I
do.
part of this process?
Right, otherwise just pour the ink in and like let it settle into the groove, you know?
Well, you know, it's strange. You hate to think you're going to pencil and then give it to a newcomer to see how he's doing, and they take your good work and give it to some kid who has never inked before. And that has happened, and because you pencil with your heart hoping for the best when someone else inks it. So I'd like to mention something about Joe GIELLA, if I may. His claim to fame came immediately when he left the artwork on a train. We wait years for acclaim and fame, and he got it right away. I'll never forget that day. It was buzzing around, and Mike Sikowski had to repencil the whole story, but he's such a sweet guy. I'm so proud to have worked with him and to be his friend. And we got dinner appointment tonight.
We had a friend who was an inker who left a job on the subway, and Dennis Janke did this, but he was able to retrieve it. But after that point, whenever they'd go out from the office, he was always limited to like one drink.
I'll drink to that.
I think I heard Alan Weiss lost some Warlock pages too on a taxi. Alan Weiss, I think, lost some of Jim Starlin's scripted Warlock pages. It was work that was never published. It was going to be like issue 16 or something, but apparently that happened a lot back then. Yes, sir.
Jerry kind of answered it really quickly, like with yourself, Jerry.
Yeah, drawing. Yeah, draw for the fans. Yeah.
How do you do it to yourself? Do you pencil really tight and ink over, or do you go as loose as you can and then?
My pencils are pretty much cave art. It's pretty loose. You know, it's just basic structure, and then when I'm inking it, I'm just coming in and hitting light sources and turning it into a real drawing.
And that's what you specifically, you know you're doing that. But
Well, a lot of drawing, a lot of penciling is stuff that doesn't need to be super tight. You know, it's like, I need to draw this bush. Really, I got to put in all the leaves in pencil so that I can go in and ink. That doesn't seem to make any sense.
It's worse to draw a really tight city scene where you're doing windows and things like that if you're only going to ink it yourself.
Right.
That's tedious stuff. Right.
Yeah, when I pencil for myself, it's cave art is a good description. You want the basic forms and the blocking, but those of us who are familiar with ink, it can be a very good drawing tool that you can add all the right stuff without having much more than an indicator of the areas, because we know where textures belong, where light source belongs, especially if
I
you're
got
doing
a
it
dinner
yourself.
appointment tonight, and I got
I
somebody
know,
picking up.
I don't know if you experience it, but I know a lot of times there's like this disconnect that you have where it almost feels like editorial is in between the penciler and the inker, where there's no one making an effort to put you in touch with each other to even talk about what's going on. Because I have guys, like you said about the bushes, I don't understand drawing every leaf on a bush when I can just grab a sponge and create that texture. It's really nonsense. And you can create a much cooler texture than what you can create with a pencil. So if you're given that sort of freedom to create, then you have, two creative people working together. But I've found a lot of times, especially with, I think, newer pencilers, they don't tend to even put you in contact with anyone. It's just here, take this and go with it or whatever.
I thought it was better when the internet made it easier to contact people. From my point of view, I used to always hate not seeing color. And when I was inking stuff, whatever, you want to be able to see what somebody chooses to do color-wise or whatever. And I think a lot of times you are kind of isolated from the other partners or whatever.
Well, I've had editors that specifically say, I don't want you to talk to the penciler. But the good editors usually do coordinate it all the way from, writer, penciler, inker, colorist, letterer, all of us communicate.
Can you give me a list of what you call good editors?
The ones that do what I just said.
It would fit on a 3x5.
There are.
Do you get the script?
Oh, I almost always get. I always ask for the script.
Yeah, it's never volunteered to me. I always have to ask, and then I have to ask and ask and ask 3 or 4 times.
I frequently ask the penciler if I don't get it right away from the editor.
Yeah. But there's always this weird separation between jobs, like how they see it as your job is the pencil monkey, and then you're the inker guy, and then it's never a let's put these guys together as a team and let them all communicate.
Well, you guys all have to, one of the things that's most offensive to me in the last probably 15 years in comics is an editor's inability to understand his own deadline or her own deadline, where what was said about having pages that didn't show up, that was the Alan Milgram thing, about never getting the pages, but they're late, and then the editor deciding he's going to break it up among 5 different inkers. Now, to me, the worst crime of that is it basically treats all the inkers as interchangeable.
Right, yeah.
And you can't ever develop any kind of rapport. If you're used to inking somebody, as you said, I mean, you have a rapport with, and you know what the intent is for the pencils. And if you're just thrown onto a job to do 5 pages in 2 days, you really, that happens regularly. That's what I'm saying. It's not like it just happens one time in a deadline. This would happen where Marvel was doing that, where they would do a 5 inker team up on X books or whatever, and you never, I always felt bad for these inkers because they never could even get a name for themselves.
You don't have a voice anymore.
Right,
You don't have,
right.
I've even had situations where the editor actually acts as if they're doing you a favor by taking 5 pages away. They're not giving me the money for those 5 pages that you took, but they'll actually say, oh, well, we can help you out, and well, how's that? Well, if you could give us 5 pages, it's like, well, that's not really helping me out. If you're taking money, that's
But
5
I've
pages.
been on that other side of that where the editor will call me up and say, you have to, like if I'm penciling a job, because they just realize, wait, Christmas happens this year too? Oh my God, we're closed on December 10th. So the editor would say, send 3 pages to this guy and send 5 pages to this guy. And I'd say, well, have you talked to that guy? Can he not do it? Because it makes no sense whatsoever. So I've been on that, and I hate to have multiple inkers on a job because number one, it makes it look like I was really late, and it's never an easy solution. It also, you're going to get a book that has different textures in it.
Absolutely.
One guy might be grainy and do something. I mean, I went through that on several things.
I still don't have the deadline for metal. I asked for a deadline for everything, and
Well, the pages
Pretty
probably
much the-
aren't going to be penciled for another. When does the book come out?
August, but we're working.
Well, they got till
working.
July 15th.
But,
They're still writing it, probably.
I don't think, I want to say if I remember, I don't remember getting a deadline for any of Court of Owls or Death of the Family.
Are you serious?
I never
Wow.
get deadlines. Like, it's
Yeah,
not that I don't want them. I would like to know like what their expectations are. But
That's another thing I ask for, but.
yeah, you can ask for it. It depends on what editor you have. But I've had some really good editors that will give everyone's deadlines, and that's when you have a really good editor. When you get the script and you get
penciler's
every
part,
single
the color.
person's deadline.
Also, we
it
have to
doesn't always
appreciate that the inker is usually the middle part of the team. So we know there's somebody who comes before us, but there's also somebody who comes after us. So
And everybody
I
hates
don't
the
want to
middle
dump.
child,
I don't want to dump 20 pages of a book on a colorist in one weekend because they could have been working on it as I've been working on it. So, and a lot of the creators forget that they're part of a team, and they say, "Oh wait,
You know what's changed? And we're gonna just run everybody down tonight. What's changed in comics is, because again, I've written stuff too. I understand the deadline. It all starts with the writer.
Yes.
And what used to not ever happen, the writing was always there. It was usually the penciler had some problem or whatever and missed the deadline. Now you wait on 5 pages of script from a writer, and someone can't do a whole book. You get 5 pages, and you're supposed to work on that, and maybe you get another 5 pages in another week. Well, then that guy has just dictated your schedule.
Well,
You're not going to be able to draw more than 5 pages.
Even
a week
though,
if he's not
yeah, a
writing.
lot of times I've had to wait for scripts, which drives us, drives us all crazy. But I've had many a time with all these complex crossovers where editors say it's like, oh yeah, the script's been done for like a month, but now we got to rewrite this part,
Right.
or oh, we got to take this character out and make a last minute correction. And so a lot of times the editorial is messing up the writing progress.
So there's no time for inking.
Right, yeah.
And that's why they shoot stuff.
That's
with
why they hire
pencils.
me. Yeah.
Is there any artist that you would like to ink that you haven't, or that you'd like to have ink your work that you haven't seen?
I always wanted to ink a Gene Colan job, and I only got to ink one commission
I got to
after
work
the
with him.
fact. I turned down a job back in the 80s. It was a Detective Comics that Klaus couldn't do, and I really wanted to do it, but I just really couldn't because I already had a regular book. So I always regret not being able to work on his stuff. I always wanted to, it was great to have Joe Sinnott ink even just one job. I always thought it would be fun to have Tom Palmer. It would have been terrific to have Rudy ink something.
Oh, yeah.
I love Alfredo Alcala. I loved his stuff, and I wanted, at one point, he had wanted to ink some Superman stuff when I was doing that, and I was like, hey, this looks cool. But at that point, he was kind of typecast as only suitable for horror comics or something, because he had an illustrative style.
I would have loved to have seen that.
It would have been different, and it would have
Yeah.
been cool.
Sometimes they don't read them, what the fans want all the time. Ernie Chan tried so hard to do more superhero work, and they wouldn't give it to
Well, you
him.
get typecast, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean,
Makes no sense.
I grew up with those Incredible Hulks he inked over Sal Buscema, and it's like, oh my God, why couldn't we get more than a year and a half of this? But I talked to him at San Diego. He said he's tried, and they won't let him. He got a lot of Conan work, but even that well dried up. Okay, on that down note.
I'd love to have Rudy ink something of mine. That would be great.
Did you hear that, Rudy?
Put you to
Singing
work.
your praises.
No,
That's
I'd
the
like
most,
to.
2 words that I'm afraid of when it comes to comics job. Deadline. Because way back in the Philippines, deadline is already famous to be mentioned among artists there. And as a matter of fact, that's why I'm very concerned about these 2 words. 2 of my Filipino contemporaries died because of deadline.
It's a stressful job.
And I don't want to happen that to me.
Yeah.
All of us up here, we're only like 20. It's like being president.
Deadline, oh my God. No, I don't want to compromise myself with deadlines anymore, no.
Once you kind of get off of that tough treadmill, you don't really want to get back on it. That's in my case, I certainly, no, I didn't want to get off the treadmill, but once I was off of it for a while, I was like, why would I want to work that hard for a company that doesn't appreciate me?
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm doing now myself. All right. Any more questions out there?
I don't remember the question. No, I'm far too lazy
Why are
to
you doing that?
fantasize
I was
about
under the
anybody else.
impression that you were trying to get work and just being sort of typecast as being.
No, No, I just kind of, I did some SpongeBob stuff working with editor that I work with on Shazam. And I do commission things, and I keep I'm hoping this year to try to do more of my own stuff, because I still have ideas for stories. It's hard to motivate, you know. I mean, my kids are all kind of almost out of college, so in a way, I don't feel that pressure that I had before, you know. It really is. It's like, I remember talking to John Byrne years ago. He was doing like 3 books. He was doing like 3-4 pages a day. And I remember saying, why don't you take a vacation? And he said, because if I took a vacation, I would never want to go back to it. And there's a truth in that, because comics are such a weird discipline, especially monthly comics. And I mean, Erik is writing, drawing, and inking, and it's a big workload no matter what you put into. You know, if it goes fast for you, and it's stressful, you know, because you always have the pressure of that.
No, really?
That's why he has all his hair.
I guess,
But it's,
shake this
yeah,
guy's
so, I mean,
hand.
it's what it is, and that's why when I hear about the last couple of things I've done with DC.
Sorry, Jerry. Rhodey has to leave, but he wanted to shake your hand.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
But basically, like the deadline stuff is something that if you're really, I was really invested in the characters, and I didn't mind putting extra time and working holidays and everything else. But I think when you're just a guy work for hire, or you're just a gun for hire, or do 12 pages, I don't need that. You know, I'd rather do a commission.
Which makes a guy like Joe Giella even more remarkable, that he's like 65 and he takes on dailies for.
Exactly, yeah, seriously.
But, you know, again, you do whatever, if you feel there's value coming back to you. It's just, I don't need to just do something to be active, you know. And that's just the place you come to. It came to me, kind of, it was forced on me in a way. And I kind of came to terms with it and realized that I was worried more about how am I going to make a living. And you can do commissions, or you can take on, I mean, if I do a cover, or if I do art sales, whatever, you can get by. And it's a payoff for having worked for 30-some years and having some kind of reputation, so that is paying off. Plus, I get some money from TV stuff and movie stuff that really use characters that I created or co-created, so I can't complain.
Yeah, I'm still a monthly deadline guy. I thrive on deadlines still.
I can see it in your eyes.
I'm crazy. They got that sparkle. Yeah.
In a corner. He's thinking about the 5 pages he's got in his hotel room that he has to finish by Monday.
I got 9.
Yeah, I thought I was hardworking until I met this guy, yeah.
Like the lazy
Brutal.
But it's we get a choice. That's the good thing, is that we don't have to all do it the same way. And to me, one of the things I love about inking is that I really think, yeah, obviously all pencil artists have different styles and stuff, but I think inking is such an immediate, such a precise tool that it really reflects the individuality so much of each artist, that each artist really shines as themselves when they start doing that permanent black line.
Plus it's fun.
Plus it's fun. Seriously, a lot of people are scared of inking, and I play with ink. I enjoy myself. I have fun. And people get scared because it is a permanent medium. Yeah, you can clean it up with whiteout or whatever, but sometimes making a mistake is actually fun and creative. Sometimes, trying not to make it.
When I was probably 16 or maybe 16 years old, I found a Gil Kane original art page from Captain Action. And there was a ton of pages available, and I bought that one with my birthday money. It was like a big, $10 or $15. And the guy was like, why are you buying that? And just these Batman pages and stuff. I wanted the Gil Kane page because Gil inked himself, but not because of that. I was fascinated by the fact that there was a page, that was a section of whiteout that felt like it was about a 1/4 inch thick on this one panel. And what it did for me was it made me realize that you don't have to be perfect. It's for reproduction. And I never saw that, like obviously in the Captain Action comic, you couldn't tell there was a quarter-inch thick. You know, Snowpake was that stuff they used to use. It was probably highly toxic, but it was the best correction fluid ever, you know? And
Joe Kubert's pages are like that too. You look at his classic Sergeant Rock and whatnot, and there's whiteout all over the place.
You weren't going to throw the whole page away, you know? But that was an important thing as a, you know, from a youngster's point of view, to realize that everything didn't have to be perfect, you know? As an adult, I strive for perfection, but, you know, if I have to use whiteout or if I have to cut a panel out, I do it, you know?
Yeah, that's the thing, is cutting out and pasting on it. I was like, whoa, you can do that? That is awesome.
I think that's what's missing too. Like I noticed with the sort of newer inkers or the guys coming in now that are inking over blue lines. There's guys that it just blows my mind that have never inked over pencils.
Yeah.
So you have this pristine blue line page where you don't even see the penciler's mistakes or corrections or you know, and there's so much you can learn
to a degree.
yeah. There's so much you can learn from seeing the pencilers underdrawing that didn't get completely erased and making the decisions.
This is a question actually for you guys, if any of you guys have done blue line stuff like, have you ever printed blue line and inked your own stuff? Like if
I've inked other people's stuff on blue line.
Because the thing that
Because I've been like, you know, I want to ink a Jack Kirby drawing, but I can't. You know, I'm not going
To be
to.
clear, do you mean scanning the page?
Yes, yes.
Here's the thing that a lot of people can't appreciate, and why I think inkers matter, is people have an assumption, and it's somewhat valid, that an inker, if you have tight pencils, he's basically recreating. I won't say tracing, but it's kind of like that. Every job I ever inked of somebody else's work, even my own work, if you did pencil line, you ink it and it feels like you're done, and then you erase the pencils and you go, holy cow, I just lost all the contrast.
Right, yep.
And there are inkers who let it go at that stage, but it's an entirely new stage, a new step that you have to do then. Like when I ink Byrne, Fantastic Four, Byrne liked to use really great textures on stuff, and I bounce the pen line and get textures on concrete, whatever, lines instead of solid blacks. I would erase those and it would just look like a coloring book. Because you had that pencil line back in your ink line, so you didn't get a true sense of the contrast. With blue lines, it's a little harder in a way, because until I scan it, I really don't have a sense of whether I got it right, you know? But a lot of people don't. I mean, they wouldn't erase, they would just do it, they'd erase the pencils, and then they turn the job in. You always need that extra stage. I think any good inker does that, and not just, okay, it's got to go out. It's like, wait, that lined area, that would be better if I fill it in black.
There's also that eye that disappears, like, oops.
Right.
I guess I didn't ink that. Uh-oh.
Was that guy supposed to have a gun in his hand?
Then you have the guys that ink digitally, and it becomes like almost like a crutch. Because the problem with digital is because you can be perfect, but it's not. Art is not about being perfect, so you sterilize it in a way.
Yeah.
So then we have this huge gap of guys that have inked over pencils, and then there's this weird whatever that's going on. And I'm not slamming guys that ink over the blue line. Some of the newer guys I'm finding out aren't even given a choice.
Oh yeah.
Editors are you either have the equipment to ink over blue line or you don't have a job.
Well, the companies don't want to pay for
FedEx. It makes sense from I guess from their standpoint to just go that shortcut route, but it's doing something to the art that is taking the team out of it, that's sterilizing it a bit, and it's crippling that next generation of guys to understand that being an inker isn't just being an inker, it's just being an artist that uses ink.
And a lot changed with lettering being taken off the boards too, because it kind of gives you the ability to send something directly. You didn't have that stage of getting it lettered and it goes directly. But you wind up drawing so much stuff that gets covered up, which is a frustrating thing, especially when you get somebody drawing a big cityscape and you know there's going to be balloons there, but you don't know where they might be. So you wind up spending time doing windows and what have you. And it doesn't show. So whoever sees it as if you post it on your Facebook page or you're someone who buys the artwork or something.
It also used to be wonderful to see you see the original art, and the penciler, the inker, and the letterer are all touched and worked on that actual page. And when you buy the artwork, the story's still there, you know? And now you have to buy the book separately and the art separately because they're not together anymore. It's
The first time I got pages to ink, the biggest impression on me wasn't that it was pencil stuff, it was that it was lettered. It was like, wow, this is a real thing.
Yeah.
You know, it
Oh,
felt
yeah.
like, holy cow, somebody committed to this.
Well, my scariest part when I first started was making sure I didn't screw up around the lettered balloons, because I'm not a great letterer. So if I spilled a drop of ink over it, it's like, what do I do? So you have to be really careful around those letters.
See, and I missed that. I never
You're-
inked
you're a young
anything,
pup.
so.
Every once in a while, they would give you a page that wasn't lettered back then. They'd pay you extra for doing the extra work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't get that with the blue line.
You don't get that anymore. That's long gone.
I know. The other thing is, when you had letterers, there was Ben Oda, when I worked on All-Star Squadron, Ben Oda had this habit of I don't know if he had an assistant do it, but he'd have somebody do the Ames lettering guide lines across the whole panel. So you would then they'd erase around the balloons so that it was legible, but then you'd be like trying to figure out where his guidelines intersected with what the penciler put down, and sometimes it was like, you have to decipher it.
You're inking Venetian blinds in every panel.
Yeah, exactly.
That is, I just got that Reed Crandall IDW, and it's shot from the original art, of
Yeah.
course, and I couldn't understand what were all those extra lines. Thank you.
Yeah.
And
Those were the lettering guides.
Yeah, and at one point, I thought somebody even printed boards with the blue
Yeah,
line
somebody-
for guidelines.
somebody
And it's like,
did.
wow, they really didn't care about the pencil. All they cared about was the lettering.
It's funny too sometimes, maybe I'm a rant real quick, but it's funny sometimes how I feel like the companies almost feel like inking is not important enough to not have 5 different guys, but the minute they want to create a gallery edition, that's when inking is like amazing. They create these big gallery edition books and they want it shot from the raw file. But any other time, it's like, well, we can help you out by taking 10 pages.
Well, I just saw in New York City, they had an exhibit of Spider-Man art, and a lot of the early John Romita stuff was twice up.
Oh, yeah.
And it's gorgeous to see it at that scale, and all the detail you can put into it. And people think, oh yeah, early comics weren't that detailed. Baloney, they were gorgeous.
Well, what you're saying about this is a big slap in the face to inking to me is when they do these editions. They do, not even the archives, but like even showcase editions where they recreate the artwork. They would rather spend a minimal amount to pay the recreation company to take a comic page and scan and drop out color and what have you to recreate line art than to reach out and get it. I saw All-Star Squadron, they did one showcase of it, and I was looking through the book just casually, and I was going, wow, was I that bad? Seriously, I'm looking at these pages going, this doesn't even look like me, and I went and got the original books, and it was wherever I had used Zipatone on a face, which was a great, a dot pattern on top of a red, which face was red, like a 20% red and yellow or whatever. They had to white it all out and recreate the faces. Now, I had all that artwork, and I often would offer to say, I can scan this, I could loan it to you, never ever take me up on it. So I was sitting there going, okay, my credit is as inker on this book, and it's somebody else inking.
Yeah.
I just felt stupid.
I think most artists do offer all the time, like you need any correction work, anything like that, because it's your work. You want that integrity in there. And it's funny because
you don't get a lot of money out of it. You get the satisfaction of, oh, this is finally collected. And when All-Star Squadron, anything came out in the early 80s, the printing was so terrible that you never really got to see what the lines looked like anyways.
Sorry.
You think, okay, now we got offset printing, but it's the most terrible source.
like you, I still have a stock of Zipatone sheets. So it's like if they wanted to recreate something I had inked, they're probably going to have a hell of a time finding it now unless they have somebody try to recreate it digitally, when all they have to do is call me up and I can easily recreate it.
That's the thing that's crazy. So to me, it feels like that's yet another thing where they don't value it. They value the IP and having
Yeah,
material.
not
but
the
they don't really
authenticity,
value it in the
the-
sense that it's art.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, it's strong enough to hold color, and who cares if there's rendering lines in it? And you see it with Sinnott stuff, you see it with any of the Marvel stuff as well, the reprinting stuff that if you look at the original comics, you go, wow, even with the bad printing, you can see that there's beautiful rendering in here. And that is all gone because they hired somebody to trace over those lines to make it look, or to give them a black plate to color from. That's a worse, to me, a worse slap in the face than any of this, you know?
I would think Eric would have a lot to say about that,
Sorry,
because
man.
he has so much more control over his work, you know, because it's a money-making medium. We're artists. There's going to be always that conflict about quality versus just getting it out there making money. So, you know, somebody like Eric, it's like he's got all that control, and it's like, you,
But there's
Well,
still not- I don't
I've
think
got
there's-
most of the art, so.
As much as you talk about like people who, you know, I was thinking about with, I had a conversation with Gil Kane at one point where he was, I didn't have that many conversations with him, but he seemed to like what Rudy did on his stuff, even though it was very, very heavy-handed. you know.
Overpowering. Okay.
Yeah, but he liked that look. And I always think of how you, as a kid, you kind of get this ingrained in you, like, oh, these guys, the older guys were just doing it for their paycheck, and they were drawing 3 pages a day because they were, you know, just paying bills or whatever. But almost everyone who does comics has some vested interest in doing comics. It's easy to lose sight of the fact that Don Heck did comics because he liked doing comics. It wasn't that he was trapped and couldn't do anything else. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
easy to look at it and think that these guys weren't emotionally connected to the art, that they cared how it, I'm sure they cared how it was reproduced, and I'm sure they cared about how it was colored. Kirby wouldn't look at stuff probably because he didn't want to have expectations of it. Because like he saw it the way it went out in pencils. It wasn't like he would hate the inkers probably, but he probably didn't want to deal with having that, you know, acceptance of whatever it is, because the way it leaves your board is the way you know, the way you see it. I mean, I see color in my stuff. I always have an idea of what color is going to look like, and it never looks like that. Rare occasions when you go, wow, this actually came out like what I was looking for.
Yeah,
It's not
I've had
just
a
that.
couple times where, like, especially when I'm doing finishes, when I'm really paying attention to lights and darks and light sources, and like once or twice they colored it like the right way. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. They actually got what I was trying to give them.
The best one is when you stay up all night and you work on something, and then every detail in the background was a blur
Dropped
effect.
out. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
blur.
yeah.
Like,
The
really?
shaky blur effect.
There was one time that happened to me, and I got the nerve to actually call editorial and just, I don't know, I was burned out. I was really working late nights. So when I saw it, I was just like, you gotta fix that. Like, I was up all night working on that. Look at all the detail, and then that's just a blur filter. Why? Like, you know, so
That's why
I still have a job today, so
But I
I
also,
don't want that effect at all.
I also used to prefer vastly when we had a creative team on a book that was the same for every issue for a year or longer or longer or longer. So you get to know that you can communicate, you can call up the colorist and say, hey, I'm thinking about this or whatever. And like when I was on Amazing Spider-Man with John Romita Jr. For 9-year period, or on Spider-Man books, you get to know your team, and you get to, and even encourage them to change up stuff. It's like, oh yeah, I love what you've been doing, but how about we try doing this, or I'm trying to change something. Or I could literally call up a lot of my colorists and say, you know, please don't drop out the black into a gray line or a brown line or whatever. I'm doing this black for a reason in the background.
Isn't that funny how those trends, they really are trends, because you don't necessarily see them as much now unless it's someone doing a digital thing. But it was trends. It's almost like, I saw that blur effect, and the editor goes, I want to see that in my book or something, or I want
Or the
you to drop
flares.
Right, right.
damn flares.
It's almost like like someone having a filter on their phone and going, oh, I'm going to put crowns on everybody. It really is like that, but these are the editors, you know? And you can look back at those books and you go, huh? It's almost like weird fashion stuff that you look back and go, who thought that was a good idea?
I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to end this. This has been fascinating, and I'm sure we could do this all night. But they're going to lock the doors to the convention hall in 20 minutes or less, and I still have door prizes to do. This is after 7 years of doing this. This is probably the best Q&A panel I've experienced to date.